Another kind of variable is something called an array. An array is like a variable in the sense that it holds some sort of value. Except an array is like a list of variables. These lists, or arrays, are very important for creating things like menus or RPG inventory systems. They're important for card games and even listing high scores. GameMaker has some built-in arrays. For example, here's alarm. You can tell it's an array because the name of the variable is followed by an open bracket, a number, and then a closed bracket. This example makes alarm 0 equal 30. Inside GameMaker, there are two types of arrays. There are one-dimensional arrays and two-dimensional arrays. A one-dimensional array is simply a list, starting at position 0 and incrementing by 1. In this example, I've got A at position 0, E at position 1, F at position 2, and J at position 3. If I were to write that out, it would look something like this. So I've named my array my single array, and then I follow each position by an open bracket, the number for the position, and a closed bracket. So as you can see, position 0 is A, position 1 is E, position 2 is F, and position 3 is J. It's simply a list. You could even think of them as slots if you're making an inventory system. For example, I could name the array inventory, and in slot 0 put the sword, and in slot 1 put a potion, and so on. Plus, we can mess around with the number inside the brackets using code, but I'll show you that a little later. For 2D arrays, they're kind of like spreadsheets. With one-dimensional arrays, we only go along one axis. However, with two-dimensional arrays, as it sounds, we go across two axes. So here's an example. As before, we had A, E, F, and J at 0, 1, 2, and 3. However, we've added more rows. Now at row 1, column 0, we have 10, and at row 2, column 0, we have XX. Here's an example of how you'd have to write it out. So my double array 0, 0 equals A. It's just like writing a coordinate. My double array 0, 1 is E. My double array 1, 1 is 25. And my double array 2, 3 is GG. As you can see, a one-dimensional array is simply a list, and a two-dimensional array is like a spreadsheet. Sometimes I use arrays to create grid systems. For example, here I have an array called grid X, and at position 0 I have 0, and at 1, 16, and at 2, 32. I'm just incrementing by 16. So that means my grid size, or even cell size, would be 16. The reason I do this is it's really easy to then reference a specific position. Instead of remembering all these different numbers, I could just say, oh, I want my text to be drawn at grid X position 7. And there we go, that's it. It's used as a value. You can use arrays just like you use variables. They hold values, therefore, anytime you're asked to input a value, you can just put in your array. For example, if I wanted my X position to equal 32, I could just say X equals grid X 2, which means it's the third spot in my one-dimensional array. Now, we haven't gone over loops yet, but I'd just like to show you using something called a for loop, which in this case will just loop through my code 10 times, and then increment by 1. I'm creating an array called my advanced array. Now you see I've replaced the digit that's in between the brackets with the variable I. And I'm going to make each one equal the value I. This will start the for loop at the number 0. So my advanced array 0 equals 0. And then 10 times, it'll increase by 1. So I'll have my advanced array 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2, 3 equals 3, 4 equals 4. The variable I just keeps incrementing by 1. That's all that for loop is doing. As you can see, with just a few lines of code, I've created an array with 10 positions. It took me quite a while to find great uses for arrays, and it will probably take you a while too. If you ever have to list something, create an array.